Coming to you live from Studio F in Russia, Ohio. It's the Fish Report Live Show with your hosts, Craig Fissinger and Ken Francis.
Welcome, everyone, to another Fish Report Live. I'm Craig Fissinger. That's Ken Francis. And back in our sound room, the gang's back there, TK and Heavy D. We're going to be joining them in just a little bit. And, Ken, it's the end of January. The high school basketball season is about halfway over. We're going to be talking a lot of basketball tonight, but there was a little baseball in the air tonight at the Claire C. Naveau Gymnasium, and Rushi wasn't there.
Yes, there was, Craig. Very entertaining talk given by Versailles High School graduate Craig Stammen. It was very nice of him to come back to Rushi School and talk to the CCD classes, the Catholic youth group as well. And a lot of adults there, a lot of junior high kids, a lot of high school kids. The gymnasium, actually, Craig, was packed on one side, and Craig gave a great talk. You know, he talked about his faith. He talked about baseball. He talked about his travel through from Versailles to Dayton, the University of Dayton, and then into the minor leagues, and now, of course, with the Washington Nationals. So very nice of Craig to give back to the community, as he does so often, Craig, whether it's through pitching clinics or fundraisers or whatever it might be. So very enjoyable night.
Yeah, I think we got a clip from tonight's big event, and let's show that, guys.
As we get this started, I'm basically going to explain how my faith and my baseball career have kind of gone hand in hand, and that when things go a little haywire, it's because the two have been disconnected. So growing up, you know, I couldn't have grown up in a better household with better parents and a better example than what I did with my mom and dad. I was a believer in Jesus from the very beginning. We prayed all the time, and
very refreshing to hear that an athlete talk like that, Ken. I know there's plenty of athletes out there like that, and there's also plenty of athletes out there that are not like that. I think the media tends to gravitate sometimes towards those guys that aren't like that, but very refreshing, like I said, to hear from a guy like that.
Yeah, it was, Craig. It's very interesting to hear that how he talked about his faith, and on Sundays how they actually do get church in, and 20 of the 25 guys on the Nationals team regularly attend it. So I was impressed. It was very neat talk given by Craig.
Yeah, good stuff. And like I said, we're going to be talking a lot of high school basketball tonight, and we've got a very big interview coming up the second half of the show, don't we?
Yes, we do, Craig. We're really looking forward to speaking to the Assistant Commissioner of the OHSAA, Craig, Jerry Snodgrass. Jerry's the Chief Administrator for sports of basketball, baseball, and soccer. And get this, Craig, he's also a former basketball coach at Findlay High School, and he coached a player by the name of Ben Roethlisberger.
I know that guy.
Yeah, he's a pretty good quarterback,
Yeah,
isn't
he was all right. He's all right.
So really looking forward to talking to Mr. Snodgrass later on in the show.
All right, well, before we get to all that, just like we do every week, we have a weekly trivia question, and tonight you're going to ask me a swimming question. Is that right?
No swimming question, Craig, but I did have, we directed this one at the OHSAA since we're speaking to Jerry tonight. And the OHSAA, Craig, was established clear back in November of 1907.
Long time ago.
Yes,
Yeah,
it was,
all
a
right.
long time ago. And what was the first high school sport officially supported by the OHSAA? Was it basketball, golf, track and field, or baseball?
All right. Well, a lot of those sports have been around for a while. I know we're talking basketball tonight. I don't remember if the peach basket was invented back that long ago, but so I'm going to need a little help for that. So if you're watching us on the Fish Report Live page, you can scroll down, give us your answer, and check the results. If you're watching us on NK Telco, Cable TV Channel 3, we will have those answers for you, or that result, at the end of the show. All right, Ken, well, let's get things started. And our favorite conference, the SCAL boys, we haven't talked about them in, I think, a number of weeks. So let's catch up. I know there's been a lot of exciting ball play these last several weeks. Let's check out the standings and see where we're at.
Yeah, Craig, the standings have changed some since the last time we spoke. The Russia Raiders ranked number 8 in the state of Ohio, Craig, sitting at 13-0, or 13-2, I'm sorry, 7-1 in the Shelby County League. Right behind them, and tied with them actually, is Jackson Center Tigers, also at 7-1, playing very good basketball right now. Fort Loramie, Craig, still in the hunt at 6-3, 11-5 overall. And then Fairlawn Botkins, Anna right there in the middle of the pack, and Houston still looking for its first win of the year. So big games coming up, Craig, this Friday night again, of course, and a big showdown a week from Friday when Russia entertains or travels to Jackson Center.
All right, well, I want to ask you about those Russia Raiders real quick. You know, they kind of went into a little tailspin, had a loss to Tri-Village, which was a very big game, and then to Anna, got back on track against Fort Loramie. You know, how big, I read something where the coach said today that, you know, he kind of said all the games are important, but, you know, how big really was that win against Fort Loramie last night?
Very big win for the Raiders last night, Craig. Big team win. You know, they lost to Tri-Village, which, you know, they're number 1 team in Ohio, but the Raiders had a very good chance to win that game. They ran into a buzzsaw last Friday night against an extremely hot shooting Anna team, Craig, and so give credit to Anna in that one. You know, Anna just played very well. And last night, you know, the Raiders went to Fort Loramie, very tough place to play against a team, Craig, that has been playing extremely good basketball lately. And the Fort Loramie Redskins have done a super job this season of improving, and just a big win for the Raiders to get out of there with a W.
All right, well, speaking of those Redskins, Devin Braun had a very nice game last night with 20 points. I think Grant Oberding chipped in a number of points himself. One of their starters, I believe, Clint Radaman, actually on the bench with a knee injury. But, you know, Loramie kind of dropped back in the league standings a little bit. What do they take from that game against Russia last night, or where do they go from here?
Well, Craig, you know, you've got to learn from a loss, and I think Corey Brenton will learn some things from that loss. But he's done a great job with the Fort Loramie program, Craig. He's bringing a lot of excitement to the team, not only the team, but the fans, the energy. Huge crowd last night at Fort Loramie for a Tuesday night game. And, they've got some good, tough games coming up as well. But, he'll keep his seniors playing well. He's got some good underclassmen playing well, and they're gelling very strong together.
All right, and one more question I got. You know, the second team that tied with Russia in the league standings right now is the Jackson Center Tigers. I know you and I know how good they are. Apparently the rest of the state doesn't, because they're not in the state polls right now. But that's a pretty good team over there in Jackson Center, isn't it?
Craig, that's a fantastic basketball team. Coach Scott Elkert's done a great job again, Craig, of putting the team together. They play fantastic defense, just very tough to beat. They shut down a very good Marion local team last weekend, beating them in a very low-scoring contest. So give credit to Jackson Center, Craig. They're a very tough team.
All right, well, a lot of exciting SCAL boys basketball left to go this season. Let's jump ahead now and talk a little SCAL girls. Check out the standings. We looked at them last week a little bit. Let's see where we're at this week.
Craig, the Fort Loramie Redskins sitting atop at 9-0, ranked number 5 in the state of Ohio. Pretty much unofficially wrapped up the Shelby County League last week with a very narrow margin victory over the Russia Raiders. Russia is having an excellent year, Craig, sitting at 6-2 in the league. and Jackson Center, Houston, and Anna right there in the middle of the pack. So Shelby County League, again, very, very loaded again this year, Craig. Some very good basketball teams, and it looks like Fort Loramie could walk away with the league championship.
All right, well, I'm going to go back to the sound room because those guys back there are the experts on girls basketball. You mentioned that narrow margin victory that Fort Loramie had over Russia. That's twice this year that's happened, guys. I think I read today where Loramie's won by a combined total in those two games of 7 points. Did the Raiders take any kind of moral victory from those two losses?
Well, I'll tell you what, the girls were pretty fired up for the game. They knew going in that to have a shot at the Shelby County League title, they had to go through Laramie. They went into Laramie, having been previously beat by them by 5. And I'll tell you what, the girls were fired up. It was neck and neck all the way down the stretch. We had a couple shots to tie it up in the closing seconds. Just couldn't pull it off. But I'd play Laramie again any day of the week. All
right. Well, speaking of big games, the Raiders have Houston coming over tomorrow night, or Thursday night, actually. Houston's one of those teams. TK, can they surprise you a little bit? I mean, they're a decent team, aren't they?
They are. They're not bad. They're better than their record, that's for sure, Craig. As you said, a decent team, and they played the Yellow Jackets to a tight game the other night there, and Sydney was able just to squeak one out. So they're a team that can pull it together and surprise you. So the Raiders better be ready, better have their outside defense, and they had some three-pointers going against Sydney, and that was the key to their game the other night. So the Raiders better be ready to stop that outside game if they want to keep from getting surprised with that one.
Yep.
All right, and TK, you mentioned those Yellow Jackets. They were the feature last week on our show. We talked to their head coach over there. We talked about them having 4 games in 7 days. I know they were 3-0 in those first 3 games. The biggest game of all came tonight, actually, against Vandalia Butler. You got any kind of result on that? Were they able to make it 4-0?
Yes, we just did. That game just did finish up, following that on Twitter, and the results were Sydney gets their 4th victory out of those big games. They win at 45-29. Their tall girl underneath, Taborn, had 15 points, and Davis had 14 for him. So another solid victory, and a team that doesn't look like they're going to lose too many games until they get deep into the tournament and they run into some people from outside this area. They're just taking care of business right now.
Yeah, I think that takes them to 15-1, and of course they're still leading that GWAC North. Ken, let's go back to the boys again and talk about our second favorite conference, and that is the MAC boys. Let's check out the standings and see where we're at in MAC boys.
Well, Craig, St. Henry sitting atop the league standings. Had a couple big wins last week. They're at 3-0, 12-1 overall. Their only loss of the season, Craig, came early in the season to our Russia Raiders. Versailles sitting second there, tied with Marion Local and Delphos St. John's, all with 1 loss, as well as Coldwater with just 1 loss. So the MAC's starting to take shape, Craig, and St. Henry playing very good basketball right now.
And, of course, a couple big games are coming up this Friday night in the MAC boys, aren't there?
Yes, there are, Craig. This Friday night, you've got the number 1 team in the league, the St. Henry Redskins, traveling to Delphos St. John's, which will be a very tough contest for them, as well as Versailles Tigers, currently sitting in second place, traveling to number 3 Marion Local. So very tall task for the Versailles Tigers to go on the road, and also for St. Henry to go on the road to see if they can walk away there with some victories.
All right, one more question on those MAC boys. You mentioned St. Henry. What kind of statement did the Redskins make last week, beating Marion Local, and the week before that, beating Versailles?
Well, Craig, Coach Rosenbeck's got his kids playing very good basketball right now. They've had a couple big wins here lately. They definitely made a statement. They're led by, of course, UD signee Ryan Mikesell, Craig. He's proven right now not to only be one of the best players in the MAC or in Division III, but entire state of Ohio, Craig. He's just really been rebounding. He plays great defense. He scores. Just an all-around complete player, and he's showing it right now.
Yeah, of course, he looks like he's going to be a big help when he moves on next year to play for the Dayton Flyers.
Absolutely.
All right, and one more conference to cover, and that was stick in the MAC, but we're going to go over to the girls, and let's check out the MAC girls standings and see where we're at there, Ken.
Well, Craig, the Versailles Tigers ranked number 7 in Ohio, sitting at 5-1 overall. Marion Local number 2 in Ohio, sitting at 4-1. And New Knoxville also at 4-1. So the MAC is very balanced this year, Craig. I don't know that they've got that dominant team like they've had in previous years. Obviously, they've got some very good teams, but they don't have that real dominant team that I see right now making a huge tournament run. But I could be wrong. Some of these teams are they're improving. Versailles and Marion Local, of course, the top 2 right now.
All right, I want to go back to the sound room quickly one more time and talk about the MAC girls, guys. It doesn't get any bigger than the game coming up Thursday night, and MAC girls does it.
Right, Craig. As you said, Versailles strong so far this year. There are 3 losses to Tip City, to Fort Laramie, and to New Knoxville. So some tough teams did take them down. Marion Local, arguably, they've had a little bit lighter schedule so far. They've not played Versailles yet. This will be their game this week. They've not played Fort Laramie. They've got Lima Bath coming up. So probably this is going to tell the tale for Marion Local, and it'll be a heck of a game. Again, probably Versailles has played the tougher schedule, so even though the record's a little bit worse, I don't think it's going to be a walkover or anything for Marion Local. It's going to be a tough game.
All right, well, good stuff back there, TK. And that's going to wrap it up for our first half of the show, talking some high school basketball. But we're going to talk some more high school basketball after the break, and our big interview with the Assistant Commissioner of the OHSAA, Jerry Snodgrass. Stay there. We'll be right back.
Well, I'm digging on you. I'm digging on you. What's poor boy to do? You got me acting a fool. I'm digging on you. I'm digging on you. I'm digging on you. What's poor boy to do? You got me black and blue. I'm digging on you. I've been watching from my window, and I just can't get my eyes off of you, girl. You don't know me, you don't know I'm looking. Oh, how I wish to be part of your world. Well, I'm digging on you. I'm digging on you. What's the poor boy to? You got me acting a fool. I'm digging on you. I'm digging on you. I'm digging on you. What's the poor boy to? You got me black and blue. I'm digging on you. Well, I'm hypnotized by every expression in the way you run your fingers through your hair. Would you find us romantic? Oh, a little bit frightening to know that you are never, ever alone. Well, I'm digging on you. I'm digging on you. What's the poor boy to? You got me acting a fool. I'm digging on you. I'm digging on you. I'm digging on you. What's the poor boy to? You got me black and blue. I'm digging on you.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the second half of Fish Report Live. Ken, before the break, we were covering the SCAL MAC, all the standings there. We're up to date on all that, and very excited to be talking to this guy next. Like you said at the top of the show, he's the Assistant Commissioner of the Ohio High School Athletic Association. He's also a 31-year veteran in education, including being both a former teacher and coach. He's also a former broadcaster, so we like that. We're happy to have him live on the phone right now. Jerry Snodgrass, welcome to Fish Report Live, and thanks for joining us.
Hey guys, thank you very much for having me on tonight.
All right. Well, listen, we just mentioned a little bit ago about your extensive background. So tell us, how did you go from all of that to being the assistant commissioner? I mean, was that a goal of yours from the beginning of your career?
I don't know. It depends what you found out in my background there. But no, guys, you know what? I've always loved the administration side of things. I've always liked leadership type roles, and my wife always asks me, it's more like the, hey, Jerry, when is enough, kind of thing. But, from being an assistant coach early on, I had my first head coaching job at the big young age of 24, I think it was, and loved it. But I loved the athletic administration side of things, and it was just, for me, a natural progression to get more involved. And, I chose the route. Some people choose to go into the principal and superintendent ranks, and I elected to stay into the athletic director ranks or the athletic administration ranks. So, lo and behold, that's where I am now, and very thankful I am.
All right. Well, real quickly, I just mentioned a little bit ago that you also spent a little bit of time as a broadcaster with TV44, which is of course, now WOSN. As a matter of fact, I believe we have a picture that we found on Twitter, and Jerry, you're getting hit in the side of the head with a basketball here. And I got to ask, after that, do you miss that career at all?
Hey, you know what? I was able to step back into it last Friday night and do a game up at Miller City. Miller City in Ottoville. And I'll tell you what, I love getting back to it. My daughter is in the TV business, and so is my son-in-law. My daughter was a news anchor for a while, and now works more on the technical side of things. But it's just always been something I've enjoyed doing, and wasn't good enough, I guess, to do it full-time, but love the fact that I was able to do it.
Jerry, hi, this is Ken Francis, and I appreciate you taking time to be on our show. A couple weeks ago, we talked to AAU basketball with Ohio's Mr. Basketball and newly named McDonald's All-American Luke Kennard. What are your thoughts on AAU basketball and how it affects the high school game, and what kind of challenges you face with AAU sports?
And thank you for asking that. I think the key word is challenges. The best way to say this, and by the way, with you having Luke Kennard on, what a great young man, what a great coach that he has, and represents Ohio basketball so well. But relative to the challenges, for a long time, you would even hear high school coaches say that AAU is the death of high school basketball. Those same coaches would turn around and call me and say, hey, I want to make sure I know what all the rules are because I'm trying to get my kids into an AAU program. So I'm not ever going to be convinced that it's the death of it. And I think we're starting to get to a healthy medium ground for all of this. It is a great platform for those kids outside the basketball seat, the high school basketball seats. The Luke Kennards blossom from things like that. And so I think it serves a great purpose. When it crosses so far over that we've got AAU programs, I've got a 4-year-old grandson, and I'm worried that he's trying to get into a AAU travel basketball program at 4. I just think that stretches it a little bit, and you kind of look then, when is enough at that younger age group. So I think it serves a great purpose, though.
I'm going to talk a little bit about a pet peeve of mine, Jerry, and that's transfer students. Kids that transfer out. We're from small-town Division IV Russia, public school, all homegrown Russia kids, and we have to go up against challenges sometimes, not only with the private schools anymore, but also with public schools. Kids transferring, their penalty is just simply an 11-game suspension. Bottom line is they still get to play half the season. They still get to play postseason. What are your thoughts on transfer students, how it's changing the game, and what can be done to control the problems that I feel that it's creating?
First, you are right. You in your area of the state, I would say this, really for Northwest Ohio down south of Dayton. You can see the names on the rosters, and by golly, you can go any year, and it's the same names. It's a brother. It's a father that played. And you are right. I grew up in Northwest Ohio basketball, Upper Sandusky, and I think it's the best thing going. Now, I also think that the transfer situation right now, as easy as it has become, is hurting high school basketball more than it's hurting any other sport. 11 games, if you're an underclassman, you're probably more willing to do it. Half of a football season with no guarantee you're going to get into the playoffs, I think it's less likely. Interestingly enough, the one thing that I've encountered, I don't deal directly with approving transfers or anything, it's in our compliance staff, but one of the things I have had multiple calls on in the last few weeks are kids that were freshmen or sophomores that made this move because the grass was greener somewhere. Now they want to go back. They made a mistake. So I'm wondering a little bit if maybe when the dust settles, it might be better. I don't know. The jury's out on that. I'm not going to give anything but the company line in that, it is the rule, and the school districts did pass it with a lot of legislative influence to make transferring easier. And I'll give this comparison real quick. ed choice today, giving kids the opportunity to go where they want for an education, which is promoted by the governor big time, has made its way into athletics, especially when we say athletics are education-based, which they are. So that legislative influence says, if you're going to give kids the opportunity to do this, or we're going to give them for educational reasons, then by gosh, we're going to give them that same opportunity to do it in athletics. The landscape is changing. There's no question. I hope when the dust settles, it gets a little bit better.
All right, Jerry, speaking of things changing, I saw in the paper here just this past week where Dayton Public Schools is actually changing some things and moving some Friday night games to Sunday now because of some problems they were having. I want to ask you, is that something that they had to deal with you on, and what are your thoughts on that change?
No, they don't. We probably, a lot of people don't really realize this, but Ohio gives more freedom to its schools to do things than most states do. And a great example of this, down, in the Dayton area, of course, in Kettering, was the Fly Into the Hoop Classic that's been growing bigger and bigger. You look at the teams that are in that. Finley Prep. Finley Prep isn't even a high school. It's a prep school. 20-year-olds that play on their teams. Ohio is one of the only states that will allow its public school or its member schools to participate not only against them, but even in the same event with them. So Ohio gives a lot of freedom. I extend that to say that we don't regulate what nights they play on, what days, or anything of the sort. We have a handle on that in tournament, and Dr. Ross is a big proponent of wanting to stay away from Sundays. We had that thing in this past fall with the state championships at Ohio State for the first time, and there was Ohio State wanted to play and the sports commission wanted to play a game on Sunday, but Dr. Ross was steadfast on that we would not schedule on Sunday. So schools do it, and I understand why they do it, and I'm glad they have the freedom to do it.
Commissioner, I've got one more last question for you before we let you go. One of the programs that you've launched this year in the OHSAA is called the Battle for the Golden Megaphone. Could you talk about this? What excitement it's drawn to the fan base of the basketball teams, and a little bit more information about it.
Thank you very much for asking that. And social media is beautiful. I realized early on with my stepping into the social media world, especially with the kids, it's how they communicate. And it's a program to using social media and the hashtag Golden Megaphone, and kids know what that is, that they can actually apply and be recognized for all the good things that student bodies do. I was blown away when I first got into this and realized that about every student section has a leader and they have their own Twitter account. I'm amazed by that. I go back, my last coaching year was in 99, and even then it wasn't as prevalent, but, I had the Snod squad, and they were on the edge at times, I will admit, but they were a very necessary group that supported teams. We're trying to highlight all the good things and the fun that high school kids have at games, and it's really taken off. They can find that information either by searching the hashtag Golden Megaphone, or on our website on what I call our Rebounders Reports on our basketball webpage.
Jerry, I'll have to tell our Rushi Raiders, because I got to be honest with you, we've got our own leader and we've got our own Twitter page. So,
and I want them part of it. I would welcome it, and especially from Rushi, the Shelby County area. You and I both know they're so good relative to the student support.
And speaking of Twitter, Jerry, I have to say you do a very good job on that as well. I follow you, and you put some interesting stuff out there, and sure appreciate that. The communication between Ohio High School and us fans out here.
I appreciate that very much. I echo and repeat that I am very blessed to do what I do, knowing that I'm able to work with basically 1,600 varsity programs in the state of Ohio. I'm a former coach, and I'll tell you, I look at it as giving back, and any way I can do it, I do. So thank you for saying that.
Mr. Snodgrass from Fish Report Live, Craig and I, we thank you very much for being on our show tonight. We've been doing our show now for 3 years, and it's the first time we've had you on, but probably not the last time. Very interesting to talk to you, and really appreciate it and hope you enjoyed being on our show.
Anytime, guys, and I will tell you that you guys are also one of the reasons why not only Northwest or, the western part of the state, but Ohio basketball is so good and Ohio sports is so good. So, on my behalf and the association's behalf, thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
All right, that was the Assistant Commissioner of the Ohio High School Athletic Association, Jerry Snodgrass. And Ken, that's the kind of guy you want to have in that type of position, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Very good to talk to, Craig. Great speaker. Answered some great questions. And honestly, I'd like to have him back on the show again sometime, maybe next year, and throw some more questions at him. Like he said, he didn't care what we asked him. As long as it's about high school sports, he was willing to answer it.
A good man. All right, Ken, well, that's about going to wrap things up for tonight. Do have to get back to that trivia question you asked at the beginning of the night. Give it to me again, and I'll have the guys back in the sound room check our telemetrics out. Speaking of
OHSAA, Craig, which was established in 1907, what was the first sport officially supported by the OHSAA? Was it basketball, golf, track and field, or baseball?
Well, like I said at the top of the show, I'm not sure the peach basket was invented back then yet, but I'm thinking that's got to be the answer if we're talking all basketball tonight. So let's go back to the sound room. Guys, anything on the telemetrics? Any help?
Yeah, a little bit. We're gonna recommend a game invented by a gentleman named Sir Abner Doubleday. He invented the game of baseball a while back, and he is being outvoted, or he is outpacing Dr. James Naismith in basketball.
I'm impressed you know those two names. I was thinking Doubleday was the basketball guy, but you're right. He's the baseball guy. All right, well, I'm going to go with Doubleday and go with baseball then, Ken.
Well, Craig, you're not right. First of all, you're wrong. It was not baseball, and it wasn't even basketball, Craig. Believe it or not, it was track and field was the first sport ever officially sponsored by the OHSAA.
All right, well, that's good stuff, and I'll have to maybe redeem myself next week.
All right, well,
that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. I do want to say special thanks to the Assistant Commissioner, Jerry Snodgrass, for coming on our show tonight. Ken and I and the crew will all be back again next week, same time, same place, talking a lot more sports. But until then, have a great rest of the week, and good night, everyone.
Hanging at the fish report. 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 For your latest news in high school sports, tune in to the fish report. Don't need no bed, don't need no pull when you tune in to the fish report.